Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the darker side of retro gaming. The NES is famous for Mario, Zelda, Duck Hunt, wholesome stuff, but some games were violent, creepy, and downright shocking. We're counting down 14 violent and uncensored NES games that are way worse than you remember. Smash that like button, subscribe, and let's get into the nightmare fuel. Chiller, 1990. Chiller is one of those games that makes you wonder how anyone thought it belonged on the same console as Bubble Bobble. The premise is simple but disturbing. You control a crosshair in a ghost house torture environment. Your job is to shoot everything. Skeletons, ghosts, and crumbling walls, sure. But then the game also includes prisoners strapped to torture devices. And when you shoot them, pieces fly off. The whole vibe feels like a haunted carnival game designed by a dentist who hates his patients. What makes it violent is the gleeful focus on harming helpless victims. People scream, limbs detach, and you get points for causing pain. On NES, kids could have been playing this right after school. The unlicensed nature gave it total freedom to be nasty. The good thing is that the concept is so silly that most players just laugh nervously at it. The bad is that the controls feel sticky and aiming is slow. The violence is shocking enough to keep the game in memory, even when everything around it feels janky. Chiller is infamous for a reason. It promised ghosts, but gave you a torture simulator instead. Retro edgelord energy at maximum strength. Narc, 1990. Narc throws you into the war on drugs with all the subtlety of a brick through a window. You play as futuristic police officers blasting criminals and drug lords. The arcade version is explosive and wild. The NES version tries hard to keep up, though the graphics turn everything into red pixels that might be explosions or just ketchup. Violence comes from constant shooting. Enemies explode into chunks. Dogs leap at your throat. And there's a giant final boss called Mr. Big who melts into a screaming skull monster. When you arrest bad guys, the game encourages you to say no to drugs while you fire rockets into crowds. Good part, the game supports co-op, so you and a friend could complete this rampage together. The bad part, performance drops like crazy when too many enemies appear. Also, the messaging feels wild. It tells kids to avoid drugs while letting them annihilate every living thing in sight. Narc is chaotic, ridiculous, and unintentionally funny. It teaches players that justice means having unlimited ammo. Who needs a badge when you have a bazooka? Bionic Commando, 1988. Bionic Commando looks like a normal action game at first. You're a soldier named Lad Spencer, yes, that is his name, with a grappling hook arm. You swing through levels rescuing your buddies. Cool, right? Then the plot reveals that you're basically fighting space Nazis. The bad guy literally revives a villain who resembles Hitler. The game even shows him exploding in a detailed head blast during the ending. That was intense for NES kids. Violence appears through constant gunfire, explosions, and the famous cutscene where the villain's face flies apart like confetti. Kids probably paused the game and stared at the TV, wondering if they were allowed to see that. The good stuff is the unique grappling gameplay, which still feels fun. You can't jump, so swinging like Spider-Man becomes a strategic move. The bad is the stiff controls and confusing map system that might make younger players throw the controller. Bionic Commando seems like an upbeat adventure until the final scenes hit you with political shock value. The combination of sci-fi and explosive dictator defeat made this one legendary. Abadox, The Deadly Inner War, 1989. Abadox is what happens when a biology textbook and a horror movie have a baby. You play as a soldier flying into the stomach of a giant alien organism. Everything you shoot is some sort of stomach monster or squishy parasite. Instead of metal and robots, You blast teeth, flesh, lungs, eyeballs, and whatever else comes with the alien anatomy package. It's like a field trip inside a nightmare. The gore is what stands out. When you die, your character literally becomes a cloud of blood chunks. The backgrounds look like intestines and organs. The final boss is a big screaming mouth. You end the game by escaping as the alien collapses from the inside. Good luck eating dinner afterward. The good thing is, the music slaps. The scrolling shooter gameplay feels fast and chaotic. The bad thing is the difficulty. You die once and lose all your power-ups, which turns the game into a punishment session. Abadox might be one of the grossest games on the system. It feels like everyone involved really wanted to traumatize someone. Zombie Nation, 1990. Zombie Nation is pure weirdness. You control a flying samurai head named Namakubi. He spits bullets and can scream beams at enemies. The United States is taken over by zombies because of an evil alien parasite. Your giant head flies around destroying buildings and freeing brainwashed citizens who drop like confetti. The violence mostly comes from blowing up cities. The destruction feels almost joyful. Civilians fall screaming. Enemies lose limbs, and buildings collapse into pixel rubble. The story says you are saving America, but you are also leveling half the country in the process. The good thing is that the game is so bizarre that players stay curious. You get to destroy landmarks and scream magic at tanks. The bad is that the hit detection might make you scream too. The graphics get messy fast and bosses feel unfair. Zombie Nation is cult classic chaos. It's the only game where a giant samurai head screams laser beams at Statue of Liberty zombies. And honestly, the world needs more ideas that wild. Sweet Home, 1989. Sweet Home was released only in Japan, and players around the world discovered it later through fan translations and emulation. It's a survival horror RPG set in a haunted mansion. 5 filmmakers explore the home of a dead artist, and soon ghosts and monsters make them regret their life choices. This game inspired Resident Evil, so the violence comes with a big legacy. Characters can die permanently. When they do, you see disturbing death scenes with blood and spooky imagery. Enemies include rotting corpses, demons, and haunted dolls. Doors slam, skeletons jump out, and the mansion constantly tries to murder everyone. The good part is the deep story. Each character has unique tools and personality. The bad is the punishing difficulty. If one person dies, you lose their skills forever. Players learn to be terrified of random encounters. Sweet Home might be one of the scariest games on the console, even without a Western release. Anyone who got a translated version probably played with the lights on and snacks ready. Horror fans love this one, and for good reason. Monster Party, 1989. Monster Party tricks you with a friendly title screen full of smiling stars and rainbows. Then the real game begins. You play as a kid named Mark, who teams up with a winged alien, transforms into a monster, and battles gruesome bosses. The bosses include zombies, dripping blobs, giant plants, and surreal creatures inspired by horror movies. Violence is everywhere. Blood splatters around enemies. One boss is a pile of bloody limbs on the floor. There's even a headless corpse yelling at you. The original Japanese version had even more gore that was toned down for the US release. Even with censorship, it shocks young players expecting a cute adventure. The good thing is the creativity. Every level has weird jokes, parodies of horror tropes, and enemies that feel hand-drawn by someone who had a spooky mind. The bad, the gameplay feels clunky, and hit detection can ruin your day. Monster Party is creepy, funny, and unpredictable. It's like a fever dream starring a baseball bat-wielding kid. Anyone who thought it would be adorable learned that NES sometimes went full horror mode. Splatterhouse, Wanpaku Graffiti, 1989. This Splatterhouse entry only released in Japan, but fans eventually played it worldwide using translations. It takes the violent arcade franchise and turns everything into a cute cartoon. You play as a chibi version of Rick with a hockey mask as he hacks through monsters. The style looks adorable, but the action stays violent. Enemies explode into cartoony pieces. There are vampires, zombies, headless creatures, and a boss that moonwalks like Michael Jackson. The humor makes the gore feel silly, yet it still involves chopping through horror icons. Anyone who thought cute horror was safe got surprised. The good thing is the smooth controls and fun parodies of horror movies. Cutscenes tease classic films and make players smile. The bad part is that the game is short and easier than expected. Some players wanted more challenge. Splatterhouse. Wanpaku Graffiti creates a mix of laughter and screams. It proves that horror does not need realistic blood to be intense. Fans love it for being playful and spooky at the same time. It's a treat for those who tracked it down years later. Friday the 13th, 1989. Friday the 13th tries to bring the slasher movie experience to the NES. You play as camp counselors trying to protect kids from Jason Voorhees. You explore cabins, fight zombies for some reason, and keep checking the map because Jason appears randomly like a jump scare in pixel form. The violence includes Jason attacking with blades, counselors dying if you mess up, and creepy death screens. Jason's purple outfit looks goofy, but the danger feels real when he jumps out of nowhere with a machete. Kids who like the movies probably rented this and realized their heart was not ready. Good things include the atmosphere. The music creates tension and makes every step feel risky. The bad things are the confusing mechanics and the weird enemies. Why are zombies wandering a summer camp? What happened to the boats? Many players still don't know. Friday the 13th leaves an impression, sometimes frustration, sometimes terror, sometimes a laugh at Jason's color choices. Either way, it remains a violent piece of NES history based on one of the most iconic horror villains ever. Rescue, the Embassy Mission, Hostages, 1989. This game gives you a tactical mission. Rescue hostages from terrorists holding an embassy. The premise feels more realistic than other NES shooters. You sneak through streets, dodge searchlights, rappel down walls, and burst into rooms guns blazing. It feels like an action movie. Violence comes from the gunfire. Terrorists fall when you take shots. The hostage rescue scenes involve quick decisions between saving civilians or accidentally harming them. The tension stays high. The game even shows characters collapse dramatically when hit. Good things include the mix of stealth and action. It keeps players alert and rewards good timing. The bad is the limited length. Once you know what to do, the game becomes short. Also, one wrong move can end everything fast. Rescue. The embassy mission keeps the violence grounded in a serious tone. Instead of zombies or aliens, you deal with threats that feel real. NES kids got a tiny taste of tactical shooters long before Rainbow Six became a thing. It feels intense, simple, and cool. Shadowgate, 1989. Shadowgate is a dark fantasy adventure game where every wrong move means a painful death. You explore a haunted castle full of traps, puzzles, and a demon called the Warlock Lord. You solve problems by clicking objects on screen. Clicking the wrong thing usually ends in a scene showing your character getting roasted by a dragon or falling into a pit. Violence appears in the death animations. Skeletons come alive and stab you. Creatures rip you apart. The text descriptions love explaining how badly you messed up. Kids reading these scenes learned new vocabulary about doom and fire. The good stuff is the spooky atmosphere and clever puzzles. The soundtrack builds tension. The bad is the trial and error nature. Players often feel like the castle really hates them. Doors shock you, floors crumble, and torches burn out faster than your patience. Shadowgate is a horror puzzle classic. It scares you with words and visuals rather than jump scares. Anyone who finished it felt proud and a little traumatized. The castle wanted you gone, but persistence won the day. Uninvited, 1991. Uninvited is another point-and-click horror adventure by the same developers as Shadowgate. This time, you wake up from a car crash near a spooky mansion while your sibling is missing inside. The mansion hides ghosts, demons, and a magician who is really into dark magic. Every room feels dangerous. Violence shows up in the death scenes. Ghosts tear your soul apart, monsters attack suddenly, and traps send your body flying. The game likes describing your failure in dramatic detail. Younger players probably read the messages and wondered why they weren't just playing Kirby instead. Good things. The story is engaging and filled with eerie visuals. The puzzles challenge your brain in satisfying ways. Bad things. There are moments where you die without warning, which leads to frustration. The control system feels slow if you panic. Uninvited offers a spooky mystery that encourages exploration. The mansion holds secrets that push you forward. The violence motivates you to think before clicking anything suspicious. It's another example of NES horror that leaves a mark. Robo Demons, 1990. Robo Demons brings heavy metal album art to an 8-bit world. Satan rules a robotic hell, and you need to blast robots and demons while running through weird levels filled with skulls and fire. There isn't much story beyond go destroy evil machines, but the imagery suggests a big spiritual battle is happening. The violence comes from non-stop combat. Things explode constantly. Skeleton robots crumble, demons burst, and your character slices through everything. The theme mixes religion and gore into a chaotic package. Color Dreams didn't worry about parental approval. Good thing. The creativity of Robot Hell makes you curious about each area. The bad, the controls feel stiff, and jumps can ruin your day. The combat sometimes becomes repetitive, and the music is loud in a way that might bother your brain cells. Robo Demons looks edgy for the NES. Anyone who played it probably felt like they discovered a dangerous secret game their parents didn't want them to find. It's weird, violent, and very unpolished, but it stays memorable. Maniac Mansion, 1990. Maniac Mansion is a comedy horror adventure with teenagers exploring a creepy house to save their friend from mad scientists and aliens. It's full of jokes, but the danger is real. If you make wrong choices, characters can get kidnapped or even die. The Edison family inside the mansion looks silly, yet they can be scary when they chase you down. Violence is mostly implied but strong when it appears. Early PC versions had even more intense scenes like exploding hamsters, but the NES version still includes creepy experiments, dark humor, and threats from the villain. The house has torture rooms and radioactive slime that makes you regret touching it. Good things, multiple characters, different endings, and funny writing. The puzzles feel creative. Bad thing, some puzzles confuse players and cause a lot of wandering around. Getting stuck was common. Maniac Mansion mixes laughter with tension. It feels like a horror movie parody, but still keeps players nervous. NES fans lucky enough to find it got a game that stood out from everything else on the shelf. Marvelous verdict. And that wraps up 14 violent and uncensored NES games that pushed boundaries in the 8-bit era. Some were scary, some were gross, and some were totally ridiculous. But they all remind us that old games could be surprisingly wild. If you enjoyed this trip through retro nightmares, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment about which game shocked you the most. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.